Welcome to Inside Out Interview. This is your insider guide to what to bring to your interview. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to this channel for all of the ins and outs to interviewing. If you're a recent graduate and this is your first ever professional interview, you might have no idea what to bring. So let me tell you. The absolute most important thing to bring to your interview is your resume. Even though you've already submitted it online or perhaps emailed it to your future employer, they will need a copy in the interview itself. Many employers won't print out your resume, and even if they have, it doesn't mean they've actually read it. I can't tell you how many interviews I've walked into where they will have my resume in front of them, but they'll tell me, I haven't gotten a chance to read your resume, can you tell me what's on it? And it's right there, in front of them. Sometimes the person interviewing you isn't the one who screened the resumes, so they may not have looked at any of them. Along with your resume, it's also important that you include a cover letter or references if your employer asks for them. In fact, you might just want to bring them anyway, even if they weren't asked for, because if you can provide those for them, they'll be very impressed. To look more professional walking into your interview, you may want to consider putting your resume and cover letter in a folder. I like to keep my resume and cover letter in a simple manila folder like this one. I like it because it's not distracting and it's easy. If you're working for a company that's a little bit more fun or a little bit more edgy, you might consider a different type of folder. For example, here's a nice blue one, so you really have to feel out and do your research on the company to know if they're going to be a little bit more creative in the way they approach things. At a minimum, you should bring 3 resumes, 3 cover letters, and 3 copies of your references. This is because in the interview itself, you might not have just one interviewer. You might have 3. You might have 3 at once. You might even be led in a succession of different interviews depending on how well that first one went. Not as important, but really helpful is if you bring yourself a notepad and a pen. Before you go into your interview, the receptionist may have you fill out more paperwork. This can happen, and it looks better if you already have a pen and are prepared for that. The notepad is helpful for jotting things down at the end of the interview or in the question-answer portion at the end if they offer one. This leads me to my next point. It's really important that you bring questions to your interview. You are also interviewing your future employer. You want to be sure that this job is one that you want too. If you already have a notepad, it's really helpful to already have your questions on there because in interviews, you might get nervous and so you might forget what you were going to ask them, even if you planned it out ahead of time. So bring your notepad with questions already on it, ready to go. The next few things are not essentials, but I like to have them whenever I go to an interview. I like to keep a paper copy of any instructions my future employer sent me, such as how to get into the building, or which floor to go to, which office number to go to. This way, if I find I don't have an internet connection or something like that, and I can't double check those instructions online or in an email or in a text message, I can have them right there on paper. I also like to keep the contact info for my future employer or interview handy, because if something happens on my way, such as if I get into a car accident or if there's a car accident blocking all lanes of traffic, I can call and let my employer know that, hey, this happened, I'm going to be a little bit late, or we might need to reschedule. I also like to keep a water bottle in the car because let's face it, if you get a little bit nervous, you might get some dry mouth, and nothing is worse than trying to talk when you have a dry mouth. I also like to keep breath mints for freshness, and if you are a lady, you might want to keep some extra beauty supplies, such as your favorite lipstick. That's it from me, but remember, subscribe for an empowered interview, like if this helped you, share for the value, and I'll see you on the flip side.